Thank you. Gay.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for facilitating me. The new Irish Minister for European Affairs has just arrived, so I'm meant to be meeting her. And can I say, first of all, Chairman, that I find it extraordinary when the only people who are taking responsibility are the Irish taxpayer, not the European Central Bank, which in my view contributed to the problem by not heeding the warnings that I, for example, for 2.5 years raised about asset inflation here with Mr Trichet. Not the European investors who put money from Germany and France and other countries into Ireland. They are not carrying the burden. Not the Irish government who allowed it to happen. They are not carrying the burden. The Irish taxpayer is carrying the burden. We have gone from a 30% debt GNP ratio to just under 120% of a debt GNP ratio. My taxpayers are paying that to pay off bills to private people. In those circumstances, I find it reprehensible that one country's Minister for Finance, a big country that has a corporation tax rate, effective corporation tax rate, 2/3 of the rate of Ireland, because of their domestic political difficulties, uses the Irish taxpayer as a whipping boy. We will not accept that in any circumstances. And I have to say, I don't know where liberty, equality and fraternity has gone, but this is totally unacceptable and totally unreal. Do you accept that it is not in the interest of the European Union to ask any member state to carry a burden that is unsustainable, and that the current interest rate being charged to Ireland is and could be the straw to break the camel's back? And that camel is not an Irish camel, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I understand the situation. I am here for a job as a central banker. I was more struck, and I'm ready to discuss privately with you about that situation, but as a central banker, I didn't really follow your argument on the ECB responsibility in that situation. Of course, as I said before, I think central bankers in general should have looked at the financial cycle much more than they did in general. This is a lesson everybody in my community of central bankers are taking everywhere, and we talk about that. We looked at the business cycle, as I said, but not the financial cycle and the fragility sufficiently. But in terms of, you mentioned responsibilities, the fragility of banks and the surveillance of banks in Ireland are not the matter of the responsibility of the central bank, of course. Well, asset inflation, as I said, yes, but as I said, asset inflation, that's what I said. We should have looked more at the financial cycle. But the asset price inflation were limited to some specific countries, not to all countries of the European Union, of course. So, I mean, everybody has some responsibility in the situation that we have today, but I think you put it very high in the list. I think the responsibilities are quite different, actually, in terms of ranking.
And the question about the burden, do you accept if a member state is asked to carry a burden it cannot carry, that it has implications for the whole Eurozone?
Yes. I don't know what is the limit of the burden. It's very difficult, let me say indirectly, because I understand pretty well the difficulties of your country. One of the things before the crisis, I know it's easy to say after, but a number of colleagues from central banking and supervision, not many, were working on the situation you describe here, is to say how can you have a solid resolution framework that would avoid that situation. Unfortunately, that was not developed before the crisis. The financial sector was allowed to develop, freely, without a proper resolution mechanism, and so when the crisis comes, the taxpayer is put in the corner. We work a lot in Basel to try to bring that, as you know. But now how do you deal with the present situation? Let's leave it for political bodies. But I see this as absolutely a tragedy, absolutely.